How are you, Skye?
I'm great. Thank you for joining us on Life Before the Virus. So in this new world, you're at home, and what's going on since the virus with you?
Well, obviously, it started out with homeschool learning of both my children, 12 and 8, which was challenging, and had not a newfound respect for teachers who I already respected, having teachers in my family, but seeing how hard it is on homeschooling. And then, the virus affected us, my family personally. My wife's father likely passed away from the virus, and my wife was under quarantine because of the virus. So I got, unfortunately, a firsthand experience what so many families in the New York City state area are going through with having someone who has the virus and who's sequestered, or, God forbid, losing a family member because of the virus. So it has affected my family personally.
And our condolences go out to you and to your family for the loss of your father-in-law.
Thank you, Scott.
So you were unable to be there in person?
No, thankfully we're able to have a scaled down funeral under the governor's executive order. You're able to have funerals with social distancing and I think up to 10 people, but of course, in the Jewish tradition, Shiva is such an important part, and we couldn't have that, and it came up right against Passover. So it was, and then for all of us who are Jewish and celebrating Passover through Zoom, and family members in different parts of the state and country, it was an interesting technology trying to get all of us for Passover in the same space, which I'm sure you probably have a similar a story or experience with the first night of the Seder or the second night or both. So and that was only a couple of weeks ago, but it does feel like a long time ago already.
And what about before the virus, Dan? What were you focused on before this pandemic hit us?
It's really my primary obligation as an elected official, a state elected official, is the state budget. It is the single document that funds everything we think is important in life. And at the beginning, before the virus is full effect or effect at all on New York State, we're already facing a $6 billion budget deficit. But by the time the virus was beginning to have full effect by March, because of the loss of tax receipts, simply much fewer people at work or spending money on sales tax and both, we faced at least a $10 billion budget deficit. And that is probably growing as we speak. So we did ultimately pass a budget, which is in 8 different budget bills, and the particulars of each bill is different for different subject matters. But the problems of budgeting, basic math, we don't have enough money because people aren't working and can't pay taxes, not because they don't want to, but when you can't go to work, you're not out there spending money, so there's less sales tax. People aren't buying disposable goods, so there's less tax coming in from that way. There's less tax coming in from real estate transfers, and there's less income tax. So we're going to have significant challenges for this state going forward.
So how have you been working with your colleagues at the state and local levels to mitigate some of this issue that we're going to have?
Some of it, luckily through the budget, the first stimulus from the federal government came in before our budget was due in Albany. So we were able to mitigate some of the harsher cuts that would have been necessary on Medicaid in light of the federal stimulus package. But still, the budget did have various cuts, or planned cuts, I should say, through a MRT, a Medicaid redesign team, which was primarily under the governor's control, that the governor would be able to make billion-dollar cuts in Medicaid. And that's going to be very negatively impactful for the state and so many programs that our healthcare providers rely upon in which to be employed. So the stimulus package did offset some of the pain, but still there was a lot of pain when it came to Medicaid and flatlining funding on education.
And what about, I know you've been vocal on these on the jail, the populations in jail during this pandemic. Tell us a little bit about what's going on there.
Jails in and of themselves are, the virus can spread, could run rampant through jails because of the close proximity, not just of those incarcerated to each other, but of corrections officers, vendors, janitorial staff, the hundreds, if not thousands, of people who work in a jail. It is just a bad environment for the safety of everyone who comes to work, not just those who are incarcerated. So we could deal with this through legislation, but it probably wouldn't be quick enough to deal with this. What's really needed is executive power, executive authority, and using the executive authority by both the mayor and the governor to get those who do not pose a safety threat or are there on most on pretrial charges, or who are at the end of their incarceration term, maybe they have a month or two left, to get them out, because there is no safe way to keep a county jail or a state correctional facility virus free. It's just a breeding ground for the virus. The only reason we don't know how bad the spread is because we're not testing. And so we just don't know the numbers within our county jail facilities who have the virus.
So what is happening right now at these jail facilities?
Look, you do have some, as we advance on testing for primary, for corrections officers. I think you see higher numbers of corrections officers who are, and other jail staff who are testing positive for the virus. So we're able to hopefully isolate them, but it may be already too late because of community spread. And who knows when they actually had the virus in their system and how many days they came to work. So it's a very difficult situation. The only solution that we know will make things better is having less people in this close space. So that is at a minimum we can do, but it's not a fail-safe plan. It may be already too late with community spread and to do anything but mitigate the problems in our jail facilities.
What other actions have you taken to advance us out of this pandemic?
A lot of things. Two things. One, I've been working very hard with the state's Department of Labor to get unemployment applications processed, confirmed, and hopefully get payment out to people. The state Department of Labor, not surprisingly, its website, its portal has been completely inundated. But at a minimum, they have to be able to process people. So to send people back a confirmation text or email, something that says state government recognizes your application and we will get to you as soon as possible. A check will be forthcoming. So we've been pushing the Department of Labor to do that at a minimum so that people know that checks for unemployment are coming. And then we work diligently on constituents, individual cases, as best we can to get people paid and to get, because they need these benefits to survive. That check for $520, I believe, is critical to their ability to buy groceries and food for themselves, because people are not working through no fault of their own. So I've been very active. My staff's been very active on unemployment. Secondly, we've worked locally with the hospitals and informally with the people in the community to try and get meals, prepackaged, prepared meals to Lenox Hill Hospital and to the senior centers, wherever we can go. There's a ton of goodwill from people on the east side who luckily are still employed and have money and want to keep their restaurants in business. So they buy gift certificates, and those gift certificates can be used to deliver meals to the hospitals. And that's something I've interceded with personally to try and help people and help our restaurants stay in business as best we can, and as well to these nurses and these doctors and these lab techs and these medical technicians who we cheer for at 7:00 each night. The least we could do is get them fed during the day.
After the virus.
Recovery will be very long and very hard for a city that's dependent on people congregating, bars, restaurants, Broadway shows, movie theaters. How do we get back to that? We're not there yet.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for joining us on Life Before the Virus and for your leadership and advocacy for your constituents. And our condolences again to you and to your family.
Thank you, Skye. Thank you for your great work.